I want to write a book, for example, or I want to do this activity because it will prove that I'm a worthwhile person, versus I want to write a book or engage in this activity because I'm really interested in it, because it gives me pleasure, because I want to do it, I'm choosing to do it.
Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David, and I want to welcome all of our listeners to the Feeling Good podcast. This is episode 402, and I know that people are listening from around the world, throughout the galaxy, from Mars.
And now they're looking at us too.
I know. That's why I had to comb my hair, and
I forgot to comb mine, but
yeah, I
I
could
like
tell.
that shaggy, sexy look.
That bad boy look.
Yeah.
I
And
think you're both
today's
looking great.
today's an Ask David, so we're inviting Matt May to join us too. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Rhonda. Hey, David. Great to be here with you.
Always great to be with you and Rhonda. But I have to make it minimal today because of my voice. I'm losing my voice.
Uh-oh. Well, shall we make one more announcement about the team intensive
Oh,
on
yeah.
that's happening August 8th to August 11th in South San Francisco. That's one of the highlights of the team training universe. David will be teaching along with Jill Levitt, and there'll be lots of level 5 and level 4 helpers, so people will be able to have a lot of individualized attention, lots of personal work, lots of exciting didactics and demonstrations, and the opportunity to do, like I said, work on your own personal life. And you can find out more information and register for it at cbtintensive.com.
And one sales point before I lose my voice completely is that you may have heard podcasts where Rhonda and David or Jill and David or Matt and David do live work with people and get a dramatic change in symptoms in 1 2 hour session, usually a total elimination of symptoms and actually an experience of enlightenment. Let me just unplug my phone here. And if you'd like to learn how to do that, that's what we'll be teaching in this intensive, how to get rapid, genuine changes with people using the team approach, focusing on depression and anxiety. But there's almost a lot of magic in the intensive. So if you're at all inclined, you won't be sorry. It's I mean, we haven't had it for 5 years. I did it for 20, 30 years before that. It was always the best event of the year and promises to be even better now. With Rhonda will be there and Jill will be there, and we'll have it both in person and online. And we're going to be doing tag team teaching, and it's just going to be fantastic. Plus, which it's going to be slightly above average.
Exactly.
I've always found those mind blowing, both
Yeah,
personally and professionally. Thank you for doing that, David.
Yeah, thank you. Shall I read an endorsement before we dive into our Ask David questions?
No, I'd rather you didn't.
This is a juicy one.
Oh, yeah, do it.
Oh, juicy. Sounds good.
Okay, this is from Catherine, who's writing us from overseas. And she wrote, "Good day, Dr. Burns. I hope this email finds you well. I've just concluded reading your latest literary masterpiece, Feeling Great, and I am filled with
So could you read that line again?
I've just finished reading your latest literary masterpiece, Feeling Great, and I'm filled with utter gratitude and admiration towards your work. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and I began taking pills. My life before then had been, frankly, one giant pit of despair and loneliness, as I had battled depression for over 15 years before I found out about the diagnosis and started treatment. But at the end of the day, it was your books that changed my perspective and provided me with such a powerful sense of clarity and enlightenment. They illuminated to me the beauty of life that I had never seen before and I had no idea about. I was amazed by the profound transformation that my own thinking went through, even before I started filling out the exercises. It was definitely more effective than the personal therapy sessions I had attended earlier. With the support I gained from your work, I was able to successfully wean myself off medication, and now I feel good enough on my own. I am full of deep gratitude and appreciation for your contributions, and I wish you all the best and send you loads of love. And that's from Catherine.
Right back at you, Catherine. Thank you for that kind and mind-boggling, beautiful note. Deeply appreciate that. Deeply appreciate you.
Yep, exactly. Me too. And I love how she said, she said that she was able to taper off or wean herself off medication because of the lessons that she learned through the Feeling Good and Feeling Great books. It's really powerful. So let's start with the first one, and this is from Kiernan, who asked you, how would you talk back to negative thoughts like this one? It's not fair that I can't afford quality food when there are millionaires that will have access to better food and a healthier lifestyle, which has an effect on overall health and longevity. What if worthwhileness is not based on achievement, but there are still things you would like to have and enjoy? You could buy and own things, and then that you happen to like, but not to impress others. Or what if you feel like it's unfair that you should have to pay a lot of money for an expensive dental treatment that you can't afford? So here's a longer version of that. Hi, David and Rhonda and Matt. I've been listening to your wonderful podcast for about the last 3 years as I drive to work. It has really opened my eyes about how your thoughts create your interpersonal reality. I've loved the podcasts on jealousy, addiction, perfectionism, achievement addiction, and many more. My questions would be, what about if someone wants to achieve more, but it isn't based on worthwhileness? They would buy and own things that they happen to like and not to impress others. Let's say they wanted to be able to afford a nice house, healthier, higher quality food and water. As the quality does have an effect on health, especially in the United States, as the regulations are not the greatest. However, the fact that they can't afford to buy those things upsets them. The thought is, it's not fair that I can't afford quality food, but there are millionaires that will have access to better food, to a lifestyle which has an effect on overall health and longevity, sorry. Or if someone has to pay for unexpected expensive dental treatments. Here's my thought. It's not fair that I have to pay 14,000 pounds for this treatment. It should be more affordable to lower income households, as it is essential to have functional teeth. I hope I have explained this well. I would love to hear your thoughts. Keep doing what you're doing, and all the best, Kieran.
All right, well, I'll let you guys take it away, and then when you're done, I'll see if I have anything to add. But essentially, there's two dimensions to your wonderful question, and both affect almost everybody. The first is it true that our worthwhileness results from our achievements? And how are we going to motivate ourselves if we give up that achievement addiction, which I view as a self-defeating belief? And then the second question, which is perhaps harder or more challenging, is the blame and should and fairness one. That, it's not fair that life is unfair, and there's huge discrepancies and resources around the world, and some people have tremendous amounts of money and power, and others are barely scraping by to survive. And how can we talk back to the thought that this is not fair? And I guess what should we do about our feelings of anger and injustice? So there are some fantastic answers to those questions, and Rhonda and Matt will lead the charge.
What do you think, Matt?
Oh, wow. I'm really liking that we're talking about this topic. And I just want to share that I also feel angry and upset that we live in a society where there's so much inequality, and that inequality continues to grow every year. And so it's increasingly upsetting, and would just want to acknowledge the truth in the statement, it's not fair. It's absolutely not fair. And so part of uh, looking at that thought would just be to experience the feelings and acknowledge this is not fair, and potentially even plan some things to do. Like how do you, and what Kieran is doing right now is talking about it, communicating her upset, and I really like that. Um, the only distortion I see in the thought is probably a hidden should, that things should be fair. But the reality is we live in a system that doesn't produce fair results. Um,
Well,
and
it
so,
does. Can I correct that statement?
oh, sure.
We live in a system that produces fair results most of the time, but not all of the time.
Oh,
Hmm.
I like that. So it's taking out the
Yeah,
overgeneralization.
right now we're podcasting for free. It doesn't cost us anything to get our message out, and that's really being fair to us.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's another distortion that I didn't see in the thought at first.
Hmm.
Um, that things are always unfair.
And at any rate, you're right on target. Just keep going.
Well, the other thing I would bring in is just we'll probably feel resistant to accepting this state of affairs the way that they are. And I think that's where your version of therapy is so powerful, David, that it pays very close attention to things like what are my personal values? And one of them might be fairness. I want to live in a society where everyone is treated well. And I've always liked that expression. I don't know who said it, but the measure of the quality of a society is how well is the least fortunate person treated. And in our country, you'll see a lot of people who are homeless on the street, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so a reason not to lower your anger would be that it's appropriate anger, that we want to navigate towards a more fair and just society. And there are probably lots of other advantages or good values behind that thought too.
Gosh, I love that answer, Matt. And you're reading my mind, although you said it in a much more articulate, expressive way than I could have. I also you said something last week, David, or recently, CBT, there's the B stands for behavior. And if going through everything that you have described, Matt, appropriate anger, looking at your values, what does it feel like to have this sense of injustice? You could also focus on your behavior and do things, find out how you could channel that appropriate anger into behavior, maybe to make the world a more just place.
And then the
Yeah.
only thing I would add to that is that well, aside from my losing my voice, which is always kind of a pain in the ass, that's only if you speak through your butt. It's more of a pain in the throat, I would say. And it's kind of an irritation, but the thing is, hanging out with you, Rhonda, is one of the joys of my life. Not you so much, Matt. And you too, Matt. You're two of my favorite people, and I've been looking forward to this, and it's always a joy to be with you. And so I guess the question is, how angry do you want to be? How much of the time? How many minutes during the day
Mm.
you want to be angry about the injustice going on in the world? Does that mean we have to be mad and pissed off all of the time? And that's a decision that you can make. But I agree. I wish I treat everyone for free. I've said it often. I haven't charged someone for a therapy session for 30 years. And I still treat a lot of people, every week. It's just, I don't treat people very long because I try to get them better because I'm not making any money off them. So why keep them sick? So I try to get them better in a single session. But so I'm doing podcasts for free, trying to spread information, trying to do what I can, and it's something. It's not incredible or anything, but but I'm having fun, and I'm doing what I can do, and I wish our country would have free health and mental health care like Great Britain and Canada and other more enlightened countries. But I'm not shooting on the system. I'm not saying this should be different and getting all morally indignant, because it's kind of a waste of time and energy. I do get indignant about some things, but usually the more indignant I get, the more I turn people off. And so I find that when I, bring joy and integrity and respect and admiration to people, I usually get the best results.
Mhm.
Um, but you can write down all the advantages of shooting on the universe and telling the universe that life should be different on the surface of the earth. You can also complain about lions that kill deer to eat and to survive. And you say, well, they shouldn't do that. But why shouldn't they? All animals, and we're animals, have to kill to eat, to survive. Uh, and even if you're a vegetarian, you're still killing the poor carrot plant. And I've heard a lot of complaints from carrots. Why are people eating me all the time? But at
They're
any
whiners
rate,
though,
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
like grapes.
But at any rate, yes, you have every right to be upset and to feel the way you do, and it's shows what a beautiful, caring person you are, and what a fabulous value system we have, and we need more people like you, because the world is going in the opposite direction right now, heading toward more corruption, violence, fascism, killing, war. There's a lot of uh, horrible things going on in the world. There's no doubt about it, and we're going to see more in our lifetime.
Eee,
A sad message.
that is,
Yeah.
I know, that's a sad message. I hope that's not true.
You remember what the Buddha said.
Mm.
Have no
25
attachments.
No, he said there's something to look forward to.
Well, it's motivating when you say that. For me, it's motivating to see that that's not true.
Well, I think it is going to be true. The world has always gone through cycles of increasing violence, and then, you know, the wars happen, and then after the wars, everyone says, "Oh, we're going to have peace now," but it never happens. And the explanation was on 60 Minutes Sunday night. It was a fantastic and sobering show. And one of the featured thing was about this Nazi scrapbook that they found from a top Nazi in World War II. And they gave it to the Holocaust Museum, which I think is in Washington, D.C., but I'm not sure. But they showed it, and showed all of these Nazis grinning and smiling and having fun while they're murdering Jews in Auschwitz. Photos from within Auschwitz, and all the young secretaries working for the Nazis, kind of sitting on a fence and eating blueberries and saying how wonderful life was. And they interviewed a woman who was a child in the concentration camp, and her job was to talk to people as they walked into the ovens or the gas chambers, I guess, and then separate their shoes and clothing afterwards. And she said she had no tears. She said it was vastly beyond tears, vastly more horrible. And she said the thing is, human beings are animals and can turn just like that in an instant, and start doing atrocious things to other human beings, and love doing it. All they need, she said, is someone in authority, like maybe someone who's president or running for president, to give them permission. And that resonated so much in my mind. And then their last thing was with an interview with the Pope, who was saying people are basically good. And I said, give me an effing break, you asshole.
Oh, no, you didn't say that.
I didn't say that. I said, you're a wonderful leader, but perhaps a tad on the idealistic side.
Okay, I'm sure that's what you said. Yes, who's
It's a
trying to
fascinating
inspire?
topic.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think people
David,
don't like to see the inherent evil in humans.
do you think that a
And
lot
it's
of
a
that,
mistake. It's a mistake not to look at it. What?
and David, I'm wondering, do you also agree that a lot of the terrible events that we witness are based on folks with terrible ideas?
Sure.
Yeah,
I have a lot of terrible ideas myself.
yeah. That's one thing I have some hope and optimism in, is that um, if people become more interested in this type of therapy, that there'll be more of an interest in examining thoughts that they might be having that could be leading to terrible behaviors.
Yeah, that's always a hope.
GMAT, that's really interesting. Do you think if people learn like the skill of examining their thoughts, their own personal thoughts, they could learn then to analyze the thoughts of other people? So if other people are saying, fascistic things like David said, or anti-democratic, making anti-democratic statements, people will have the skill then to analyze those.
Yes,
Yeah.
in fact, I mentioned that to a crowd of fascists, and I started shouting at them, and I said, "Examine your thoughts, you sadistic asses." And they
And
started crying, and they examined their thoughts, and they fell to their knees and began to thank me.
that's not what I meant, but I love that image.
I think David's pointing out that there may be a motivational issue, that
Yeah,
often
thank you,
people
Matt.
relish cruelty and love to feel
No,
Yeah,
superior.
so
And
actually, I was thinking about it in a third term. So, like, if I'm at a rally and I'm listening to someone who loves their fascist thoughts, because I've learned how to analyze my thoughts, and as I'm listening to that person, will I be more capable of analyzing what they're saying and see the distortions in what someone else is saying?
you sure you'll see the other person's distortions easily, but it does it. They don't want to hear it.
Right.
So,
But it
so
might
what Matt
influence the.
said, it's the motivational thing.
Mhm,
That's why positive distortions are much more dangerous.
mm,
Saying we're the greatest. People want to hear that, and that's what Hitler told people. You're the Aryan race. You're the superior race, and then labeling Jews are like vermin. And I've heard a certain politician define, lefties in California are like vermin,
mhm,
and the same language, and that casts a powerful spell over people, because the people in Germany were happy, they were euphoric, they were ecstatic, they were in a kind of ecstatic hypnotic trance until their world came crashing down and their cities got burned and they were horribly defeated in World War II. But we all have that in us, and some people don't like to look at it. And that's
right,
a mistake. The problem
right.
isn't that we have a dark side, but that we want to deny it and say we're not doing this because we like killing. We're doing this in the name of Jesus or Muhammad or some political cause, and so we're doing something good. And that's where I put serial killers as one strike above the rest of us, because they don't say that bullshit like we're doing this for some higher principle. They say, I kill because I love killing. So at least they're honest.
Yeah, I think it is important, like, not to pretend that we're all good or basically good,
Yeah.
to be aware of that dark side. I think we all have a
Yeah.
dark side. Um, I liked, Rhonda, I think your point around being more capable of hearing the thoughts that someone is saying and deciding, okay, do I want them to be in power? Do I want to vote for them? That I think an more educated public will do a better job of discerning between people who are, dishonest or using labels like vermin, um, or just twisting thoughts around in ways that are untrue. And maybe if that were the case, we would elect better leaders.
mhm. That's my hope.
Right. Yeah, I think education can help, but it's limited because you see very intelligent people, even colleagues I know, who believe kooky things, at least to my way of thinking, not necessarily evil things, but religious-based things that just seem extraordinarily bizarre, and they believe them. And humans have this capacity to believe total junk. But anyway, let's get
Yeah.
on to
Right, because
another
we,
happier question. But we want to thank
Kieran,
Kieran for that. And did you guys talk on worthwhileness and achievement, or should we skip that and go on to the next question? Because that was the other half.
we did not.
We didn't address that. Yeah. That's a, we could bring, what was the precise question there?
Well, it's how are you going to motivate yourself if worthwhileness it doesn't come from achievement? And
Okay.
I think Karen kind of answered that, saying you can buy things because you want to buy them, not because it makes you worthwhile. You can work because you want to have the resources to get the things you need, the health care, a new car. Maybe you want to buy a snazzy car or something, and you can work hard and earn money and buy things. It doesn't make you any better than anyone else, but there's no reason to not work hard. I love working hard, and I love doing this podcast, for example. I don't
Hmm.
think it makes us any better than anyone else.
Yeah,
Uh,
I like that point. So um, I have a quick thought on that, which is I don't think we need to base our worth on achievement in order to be highly motivated, that we can have a baseline of worth that we're just granting to ourselves. And then we can always be motivated to get more and do better and etc. To sort of icing on the cake. But I think one of the reasons often people wouldn't press a button to feel better right now is that they imagine, well, if my worth isn't on the line, then I won't be motivated,
yeah, right.
right? And I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
that's worth listing as like a
My
seeming
my worth is
advantage.
never on the line. You know why?
No, David, why not?
I got rid of it years ago.
Yeah,
What a
Yeah.
relief.
yeah.
I threw away that unit of worth.
Mm,
It's
So are
like
you,
getting rid of a tick that was embedded in my arm.
that's
mm,
great.
that's nice. S- So I want to contrast two different things. So are you saying, I want to write a book, for example, or I want to do this activity because it will prove that I'm a worthwhile person, versus I want to write a book or engage in this activity because I'm really interested in it, because it gives me pleasure, because I want to do it, I'm choosing to do it. And then
Right.
those two choices, the way you look at it, results in feeling differently.
Absolutely. Well stated.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
hasn't. I seem to be fine somehow
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
It's fun to just be average. It's so much less
exactly.
pressure.
And we can do an externalization of voices on that. Uh, I'm your negative self, Matt. You
Hey,
ready?
negative self, how's it going?
I'm going to hit you with a hard one. I
Yeah,
heard you threw away your unit of worth.
I
Is that
did.
true? Oh, well then
Yeah.
I judge you
Oh,
because I'm
yeah.
very worthwhile. And you're not worthwhile.
I don't blame you. Like, I don't think I'm nearly as worthwhile as you are. I've just been admiring how worthwhile you are, how much you've achieved, how much you've accomplished, and
I like you.
maybe you could show me the secret.
It's comedy, but there's a point behind it, and I think it's kind of fun. And these things do have huge impacts on people's lives, and people kill themselves,
Mhm.
take their own lives because they think they're not making enough money, or they feel like they're not worthwhile enough. So it's funny, but it's also tragic.
Yep. And it can really bring somebody's self-esteem down. If they have the standard that I need to have a big job or a different salary, and if I don't have that, then I'm a worthless person, or I'm not good enough. All of the, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not accomplished enough, or I'm not this enough or that enough. It can really pull them into an abyss.
Yeah. By the way, what is self-esteem, Rhonda?
Uh-oh. What is self-esteem? Isn't it the way you view yourself? No. This is a trick question.
Well, I just think it's a good question. But to me, it's just the decision to be as kind to yourself when you lose as when you win. It's just the
Yeah.
idea of treating yourself with respect, especially when you screw up and fail.
Yep.
It's the love that you give yourself.
Yeah,
What's the
that's
difference
nice. Yeah.
between self-esteem and self-confidence, Matt or Rhonda?
So I think about self-confidence as related to the thought, I can do it.
Hmm.
And I'm a little less fond of that particular thing, self-confidence, because sometimes we can't do it. And that's okay. But yeah, I'd be interested in other people's thoughts on what that term means.
What's
Could
your
it,
thought, Rhonda?
instead of I can do it, is like I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to do it, and if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, I'm going to turn back to what David said and give myself love and compassion and acceptance.
Yeah, that's self-esteem that you just defined, but I would define self-confidence as the knowledge that you're probably going to succeed at something because you're good at it and you've done it a lot of times. And that's, that there's nothing wrong with that. And if you have self-confidence, you can often perform at a higher level.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
Well, you might
slightly
succeed.
I slightly prefer curiosity to self-confidence, just because I don't want to get set up with an expectation that I'll
yeah.
succeed this time.
What is the word you prefer?
Just curiosity.
Oh,
Like
curiosity.
this it's possible I could do this. That would be really neat. Rather than I can do this. I think it's just a subtle uh, shift in
Yeah.
the thoughts.
And it's possible I can do this and I want to try it.
Yeah, it's exciting, interesting,
Yeah, it's
and
fun,
fun.
challenging. We could just riff on this forever. Let's go to
Yeah,
Brittany. Should we go
our
to Brittany?
listeners are saying, when are you guys going to get on
I
to the
know.
next effing question?
Okay. So Brittany asked, can you erase feelings of sadness and depression by shining lasers in the patient's eyes? And David, hi, David. My husband's boss was telling him she was going to be doing some laser therapy to cure her depression. She had to go undergo 9 hours of testing to see if she'd be a candidate. Apparently, they plan to shine lasers in her eyes to erase her sadness. Obviously, I assume this is a load of garbage, but have you ever heard of such a thing? Is it just hypnosis? Best, Brittany.
Okay, I'll let you guys take take your first powerful shots.
Lasers? I know
And
it.
I want to say also that if you read the show notes, there's a lot of stuff there that we actually don't get a chance to talk about on the live Ask Davids. And I've got some fantastic uh, information on, shining cold lasers in your eyes to delete feelings of sadness and depression. One is by Dr. Alex Makowski, a friend and colleague who actually is involved in research and uh, marketing of lasers to places like Stanford Medical Center. And also a colleague in the psychiatry field, surprisingly, wrote some thoughts, although he didn't spell thoughts correctly. He wrote it STHOTS, which I think was playful. And that was the illustrious Matt May. So you want to kick off the thing, Matt?
Yeah. So there probably will always be or have always been um, sham treatments that are sold at high prices to people who are desperate, and that makes me pretty upset. I would consider something like this to be malpractice because there's no data to support that type of treatment, and it sounds kind of dangerous too to be shining lights into people's eyes, lasers into people's eyes. So I'd be kind of worried about anyone who was embarking on that treatment path.
Thanks, Matt. Short and sweet. Rhonda?
Well, it does sound dangerous, and there are lots of people who are kind of charlatans, and it seems like the field of psychology kind of has a lot of charlatans in the area. But that said, you know, what we need to do is follow the money, but also follow the research. Like you presented in your show notes, these two experts in the area. And, maybe one day the research will show that shining lasers in your eye or in your ear or somewhere, or being surrounded by them, might have an impact. But what we really need to do is keep reading about it and see if the research follows that. And if the research doesn't follow it, then we should gladly throw it out.
Good answer, Rhonda. And in fact, the research has shown that lasers do erase depression, but you have to shine them on the sole of your shoe, and then they change your soul and your world outlook. But the correct thing is these aren't the hot lasers like the surgery I had with them several weeks ago on my eyes to open up my eyes a little bit from scar tissue. But these are just kind of like flashlights, red flashlight. It's just a pure sham. There's nothing to it. Research will never show that there's anything to it. It's just fraudulent and exploitative.
Uh-huh.
And will never have, does not now, and will never have anything more than a placebo effect, just like the drugs that are called antidepressants, for the most part, have no effects other than a placebo effect. But they have people who fight like hell to insist that they were helpful. Well, my uncle was helped by an antidepressant, or I was helped by an antidepressant. So I know they're real, but it's just a placebo effect, because people who are given a placebo pill and told it's an antidepressant, they'll also have that same reaction. 35% of people will wrongly think that placebo pill cured them, whereas it had no effect whatsoever. So this is a black and white thing, and it's a shame. But it takes two to tango, and to take advantage of people, you need not only an antisocial fraud who enjoys hurting people and exploiting them, but you also need a foolish, naive person who wants to hear things that aren't based on the truth, things that are better than reality. And it takes those two to do that tango.
It might be a little confusing for some folks who have had that experience where they actually felt better taking a placebo. And I think it's useful to consider that the placebo response rates are really high for depression and anxiety in particular. And that maybe because the illness itself is based on thoughts like, it's hopeless for me, I'll never feel better. And then you've been told, oh, here's a pill, and if you take it, you will feel better. So it's directly affecting some thoughts. It might not only be placebo, which can be maybe 33%, but actually directing people's thoughts to imagining things will go well, and that could be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, well, I have a question for you, Matt, since we do have an expert with us today. Would the placebo effect just be another form of hypnosis, and could you view depression and anxiety as just states of hypnosis as well as anger?
Yeah, I think the placebo response, I think, is a little confusing. There's both placebo and nocebo. So if you have an expectation that things are going to go well, they'll go well. But then there are also cases where someone might give a negative suggestion.
Right.
And I may have talked already about this one case that was fascinating, where a patient was told that she would experience pain as long as she lived. The doctor told her that. And people get kind of hypnotized when they're in a room with a doctor wearing a white coat. And she had but she was completely cured of her cancer, but she continued to have inexplicable pain until it was discovered that she thought that if she didn't have pain, she'd die.
Yeah.
That's what she took from that suggestion.
Wow. Yeah.
And then when she realized it and she disproved it, she was cured.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. That's fantastic information, Matt. I really appreciate it. You did evade my question a little
I
bit.
did.
And the question is, would the placebo response, is that a form of hypnosis or self-hypnosis? Is there some difference between the two? Because they're both based on, believing that something good is going to happen.
I think I evaded it because I'm not 100% sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't you think you should know, since you're one of the world's top experts in hypnosis?
I feel very worthless now.
Okay, well, if you have ideas on it, bring them up later on, because I'd love to pick your brain about that. But lately I mean, not lately, but for several years, I've been thinking more about how trance states affect so much of our lives. We go into trances all the time, and we think something is just wonderful. Sometimes when I hear a fantastic, beautiful piece of music, it just puts me in a kind of a trance state.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think they're good trance states and bad trance states. That one sounds really good because you're in the moment
Yeah.
and in reality rather than judging yourself or worrying about something
Oh,
in the
yeah.
future.
Absolutely. And romance, that's kind of like a trance state.
Right. Hoping that this person is the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's push on. But Brittany is a smart lady. She was on a podcast or two, I think, and has contributed a lot to the show in the past. So I hope we were able to give you a little something in return today, Brittany. And keep it up.
Mhm.
Stay in touch.
So James asked about the use of the team methods in the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. Hi, Rhonda and David. I hope you're well. I had a couple of questions for an Ask David on the podcast, if that's okay. A bit of background. I'm a level 1 team therapist and have attended David's training in Atlanta. I live in the UK and have recently changed careers to work in the National Health Service, delivering cognitive behavioral therapy interventions for patients because David's work inspired me so much. The NHS uses specific interventions for particular diagnoses, and because I'm in training, I have to try and stick to this. I do use the team materials and approach when I can, and I've already seen some great results. The NHS uses behavioral activation for certain patients with depression, and I wonder what David thought about the effectiveness of this, perhaps compared to cognitive restructuring. I believe Aaron Beck introduced this into the CBT model as he thought it was useful. Another question was regarding the treatment of generalized anxiety disorder and whether dividing worries between hypothetical and practical and then using a certain time to actually worry rather than letting the worries dominate throughout the day was something David thought was useful or had heard about. Thanks so much for all the great work you're doing and inspiring people all over the world. Kind regards, James.
I'll let you guys take first shot again.
What do you think, Rhonda?
I first want to say, I wonder if David's heard about this. Years ago, David did a 2-day workshop on anxiety, and I was lucky enough to be there and was his co-therapist for the personal work. And the woman who's doing the personal work had filled out a daily mood log, and she said, "This is really complicated. I don't know if David could handle this." And I just thought that was so funny because David can actually handle anything. And I don't know why I'm bringing that up. Just the way he said, I wonder if David's heard about this. My guess is that David has heard about it. Anyway,
Okay.
again, we were talking about behavior, like CBT includes behavior. So
What does the B stand for in CBT?
behavior,
Cognitive therapy, but what's the B?
behavior,
Oh. Boy, that's something new, something I'm gonna have to look at,
which I
think
really think
about.
about. So I actually don't exactly understand what that means. Behavior activation, is that about exposure and facing your fears and being activated by your behavior? Is that what that
Well,
means?
the first cognitive therapy technique was the mastery and pleasure sheet, where you just ask patients to write down what they did every hour and put an M for mastery or a P for pleasure from 0 to 5.
Oh,
And that's like therapists are not very bright as a group, and have very poor skills for the most part. And so they like to use big words to make it seem like they're something. And so behavioral activation is a new advanced technique in the United Kingdom, but can only be applied to certain disorders that only the in crowd knows about. But actually, doing something has been known to lift your spirits since the 2,500, 3,500 years ago.
Mm.
But we've got the pleasure predicting sheet, which is combining behavioral things. Predict how pleasure it'll be. How difficult it's going to be, how satisfying it's going to be, and then go do it and find out how difficult it was and how satisfying it was. And we have really specialized, powerful techniques for people who are stuck in procrastination,
Right.
which includes depressed people as well as people who wouldn't be diagnosed with depression. And worry breaks too. I mean, I've developed or learned the list of techniques that I use is now over 170. Jeremy Carmel said it's over 200 techniques. But my
Wow.
answer to that question, because whenever I'll typically make up a new technique every time I see somebody, to be honest with you, or a twist on an old technique. But the thing is that what we've found is that the team in a sequence, TEAM, and that's the longitudinal, the chronology in a therapy session, can be very powerful. And in my experience, it leads to just really high speed, dramatic changes from depression and all of the anxiety disorders, often in a single 2-hour therapy session. And I've heard from some of your patients, Matt, as recently as the last day or two, that you are a miracle man and that your patients are, having fantastic changes in, a week or 2 weeks, session or two. And so I think the team is a powerful breakthrough, one of the most powerful in the history of psychiatry or psychology, and that to use it systematically and individualize it for each patient is way more powerful than taking bits of it and then applying it to diagnoses. That's still, to my way of thinking, old-fashioned thinking from 20, 30 years ago. And Britain is good at it, and they're good at systematizing things and diagnosing people and getting pretty good results in that approach. So it certainly it's done by smart, caring people who do some impressive research, but I don't think my own personal point of view is it doesn't hold a candle to the approach we're using it in team, which includes all of those techniques, but it's radically different and highly individualized to each individual you're working with. That's my take on it. We haven't gotten yours, Matt.
I like your take very much, and yeah, I, I think part of what I was considering there is that oftentimes if you're just throwing help at a patient,
Right.
like, you have this diagnosis, and then you
Yes.
should go for a walk at this time and this time and this time, that it
Yeah.
will actually create resistance because the person
Yeah.
who's feeling
Right.
depressed is like, I can't even get out of bed. And that's their negative thought, right? Or then maybe they'll be nice and go home and fail at it and feel worse, more more defective, and because there wasn't a careful consideration of the resistance
Yeah.
to engaging
Exactly.
in the behavioral program, and then that can cause a conflict with the client, and we'll
Yeah.
lose clients that way if we're not careful.
I have the highest regard for UK, both because I see the people there as having suffered and being gentle and loving and not so much emphasis on money and power as we see in the increasingly corrupt United States. I also see Canadians in the same light as more kindly and humble. And so I think UK with its health insurance system is doing some wonderful things, and academically some wonderful things. But I do think we might have a little something to offer there, if the Brits were interested to up their game to what's new and arguably much more powerful and compassionate and fast ways to help people who are feeling depressed and anxious.
We know when Tom Gedman, who was a doctor in the UK, came to speak to us about how he's stepping out of the National Health Service to open a practice based on Team CBT. That was one of the things that he talked about with us, is that it's very conscripted.
Yeah.
Here's a diagnosis and here's what you do, and there's not a lot of flexibility or chance to
Right.
be creative.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're moving along in time here, and our
Okay, I think
users
do we have time for one
we're
more?
yes, we have time for one more for sure.
Okay.
And
So
it's only been an hour. It seems like we've been here for about 3 hours.
That's what people are listening, thinking. Okay,
When's
Brian.
that elderly, demented guy going to shut up and listen to people when we're young and know what they're doing?
No, listen to
Well,
David. This is
no,
my
listen to
recommendation.
the wisdom that you're carrying. It's brilliant. So Brian asks, is positive reframing the most successful technique you've used with your patients? I can see how it would cure someone in 2 hours. Feel free to use my question and my name. I'd be honored. Best, Brian.
Okay, you guys take first shot.
Okay, I embarrassed myself last time, Matt, so you go first this time.
I'm glad to embarrass myself, Rhonda, in your stead.
Okay.
I love positive reframing. I think it's a brilliant way of reconnecting a person's suffering to seeing the positive values that is behind that suffering. We also had a lot of success. That's a fairly recent invention from David, and but we were seeing a lot of success doing methods like externalization of voices or the double standard technique.
Acceptance paradox.
Acceptance paradox. There's so many powerful methods, and again, it depends a lot on the individual.
Externalization of resistance.
Yeah, I like that method a lot. So I love it, but I see it as also part of a sequence of, like David was saying just a moment ago, moving through testing, empathy. That is within the agenda setting component, and I think it probably facilitates the whole process and then gets to often opening the door where the person is now willing to challenge their negative thoughts, and then the methods can really take off and start working. But it's hard to predict which one is going to work for a given person.
I'd just like to add too that positive reframing, it feels really good.
Yeah.
People are feeling depressed or anxious, and they have these thoughts, I'll never amount to anything, or I'm not good enough, or whatever the thoughts are, and they're feeling like 100% sad or 100%, 90% worthless, or the various feelings that you identify in the daily mood log. And then you say, like, what do those feelings say about you that are really awesome? Like, how do they reflect your core values? Or maybe they give you an advantage. And if a person really digs deep and comes up with the positives in their sadness or their whatever the challenging feeling or the painful feeling is, it feels really good to go through that experience. And I love the word that you use, facilitate. Like sometimes I think of it as a cushioning, but I like the word facilitating better. It facilitates the work of the methods that are coming next.
We have in our culture a kind of negative hypnosis that if you're upset a lot, then you look at the DSM and they have hundreds of mood disorders, mental disorders that you can pick out all the ones that you have. And you probably have, when I did test my easy diagnostic system, people had an average of 10 to 12 to 15 diagnoses. And so that creates a lot of shame. people feel defective. People feel ashamed of their feelings when you're depressed and anxious, and most people with anxiety disorders hide them, and they're ashamed because they think it's so awful to be shy or to have a flying phobia or whatever. And people with depression have low self-esteem and feel ashamed and feel like I'm worthless and there must be something wrong with me. And the cool thing about positive reframing, it makes you proud of your symptoms rather than ashamed. It converts your shame into pride. And you suddenly feel relaxed, and that opens the door to the possibility of rapid and dramatic change. It eliminates resistance. It's hard to explain to people what it is or how it is or why it works so well. And people always hear something that's sophisticated and mind-boggling, but they don't grasp it, so they think it's something cheap and tawdry and useless. And people can confuse it with trying to cheer someone up by saying nice things about them. And that's always ineffective and just makes people worse. But if it's done skillfully, it's really a jaw dropper. And I think the most unique feature of team, and maybe my biggest contribution. But once you've done that, people still believe their negative thoughts. They're relieved, but they still have negative thoughts and feelings. And then you move in with externalization of voices, which is arguably the most powerful cognitive therapy technique ever developed. It's the most, and then you shoot them into a state of euphoria, into a state of enlightenment. And those two really work together like hand and glove, and combined, they're a very, very powerful package. And I love having 150 or 200 techniques available, but the two that give me the most mileage are positive reframing and externalization of voices. And empathy is very, very important. And there's a lot of aspects about the doctor-patient relationship that we don't probably even understand yet that are very important. But certainly positive reframing is huge if you can learn how to do it. And it's hard for therapists to learn how to do it because it's so paradoxical and goes against the grain of trying to help. And instead, we're trying to show the person why it's great to stay depressed, to stay panicky, to stay anxious, or to stay angry. And most therapists are afraid to do that. They think that that's somehow bad because we were all trained in graduate school or medical school. We're supposed to be helpers, and people are addicted to rescuing and helping. And you have to let go of that helping, rescuing self. That's one of the 4 deaths of the self for the therapist in team therapy. And that makes it hard for people to learn it. But if you do, it is a joy, not only for the patient, but for the therapist. And after all, we're one. So if you're doing something for the patient that's blowing their mind, it's going to blow your mind too. So that's why it's so much fun to do team once you get the hang of it.
Yeah, I always feel a little giddy and joyful high experience when one of my patients makes that rapid recovery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just
It's
wonderful.
the best.
Yep. There were a couple thoughts that you guys shared, like I'm not good enough, I'm worthless, there's something wrong with me, etc. Would it be worthwhile either to like point out what we're talking about in terms of values connected with those thoughts, or we
Sure.
could just refer folks to your book, Feeling Great, where
I
positive
like to just
reframing.
talk in abstract terms and have them not understand it, but think it's wonderful, like quite a few people do. Sure, let's
We could fill up a lot of space. Yeah.
let's give an example. If someone's listening to the show right now, feeling defective and worthless and telling themselves, I'm not good enough, and I think I'm hopeless. I even have thoughts that maybe my life isn't worth living because there's nothing special about me. And I look around at my friends and people, and they're making a lot of money, and they're working for Yahoo or Google, or they're starting their own businesses. And they were the first, and they were top in high school, and they were on the football team, and all the girls went for them, and they were so handsome and awesome, and I'm just not any good. How's that?
That's a great list.
Yeah.
And then for I think each one of those we could pick out 2 or 3 really awesome values that
Mhm.
that individual has. Like,
Mm. What would some of those be?
well, when I'm feeling particularly defective, which sometimes happens, um, it's like I'm trying to identify what's a problem, and because I want to improve, I don't want
Hmm.
to be defective. I want to address it, and I want to be honest with myself
Right.
about my defects as a part of just having integrity. Um, so yeah, so those would be maybe 2 values connected to
What are
defectiveness.
some other awesome things about Matt when he feels defective?
Yeah, I want to hear more.
Well, you know, you're
Well,
could
I'll
it
give you more.
could you be protecting yourself?
Yeah, I care about myself too.
Yeah,
I don't want to set myself up for failure and
right.
be disappointed. So my
You're talking about
hopelessness,
anxiety now, Rhonda, or defectiveness?
I may have shifted the topic.
I was thinking about defectiveness too and anxiety.
Well, anxiety protects you. I
Anxiety
don't.
protects you. Yeah.
That's certainly a positive in anxiety. I just wasn't recognizing it as a positive in defectiveness. Uh, Maybe it
Um,
would prevent you from doing things and making a fool of yourself and failing. But
yeah.
again, that's anxiety
Uh-huh.
but that's a positive in anxiety. But what are other beautiful things about Matt when he's saying he's defective? Because you were telling me the other day you think he's a little on the defective side, Rhonda.
Yeah,
Well, he has very high standards for himself.
Uh-huh. Is that true, Matt?
right. Yeah. When I'm
Uh,
feeling defective, it's usually my high standards, wanting
uh-huh.
to improve.
And have your high standards helped you?
Not one bit. No.
No?
Yeah. That I mean, maybe early in life, but at an emotional cost.
Yeah, there's a cost, but
Yeah.
looking at the positive side,
But
do some people think of you as perhaps one of the top therapists in the world, if not the top person?
I've fooled a few people now.
but
You
Matt
And
you
did
you've said that many times, David.
and
Thank you.
does that result in part from your high standards?
Right? Like a motivated, work hard, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So
and
is that good?
Yeah, I can say that's good.
Uh-huh.
didn't your high
And
standards get you into medical school?
Oh gosh, maybe they did. Yeah.
they didn't get me into medical school.
I know
Something else did. We
you're
won't
on a
go
straight.
there.
We won't.
But so Matt, here's this good-looking, intelligent, charming guy who sometimes feel defective. So does that make us love him more or less, Rhonda?
More.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing. It shows your humility, uh, your uh, your honesty, your accountability, uh, uh, et cetera, et cetera. That's how you do positive reframing. So what's the effect of that, Matt?
It's highly paradoxical. It's like once I start to see, oh yeah, that's based in really positive values that I have, I suddenly feel less defective.
Oh
And
Yeah.
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah, and
Hmm.
so that's the first step, and then the second step is just blowing away the negative thoughts with externalization of voices, and that generally happens really fast. Uh,
Hmm.
mhm,
should we demonstrate that, Matt? Or
be happy to.
and so what's your
What's
name,
the
Matt?
I'll
what's the thought? I'm
I'm defective.
defective.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll be Bob.
What's your name?
Oh, I'll be Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the negative thought. Now we've done positive reframing. Now we want to blast the negative thought, which is I'm defective. So what's your name, Matt?
Matt.
Uh-huh. And what's your name, Rhonda?
Matt.
Yeah. So you want to kick us off there, Rhonda? Now, Rhonda's going to attack Matt with Matt's thought. And she'll sound like another person, but she's just the negative Matt. And we'll see if Matt can blow Rhonda out of the water using self-defense, the acceptance paradox, and the counterattack technique, and conceivably some other techniques as well, if he chooses.
Gosh, Matt,
Okay.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're really defective.
Oh, I think you might be one of my negative thoughts that comes around. It's nice to see you again. It's been a little while. And I know your intentions are always really good. that you want to get me to improve and be better. And what you're saying is actually very true. I don't think I'm perfect at anything, but I do some things pretty well some of the time. So I don't think I'm always defective. But if I am defective, I'd rather embrace myself as is than go around judging myself. And so if it's okay with you, I think I might do some other things rather than listen to what you have to tell me right now.
And who won that, Matt? The negative or the thought or the positive, Matt?
I thought it was a win.
And do you think it was a large win or a small
Big or
win?
small, we want
Big
to
or
start with.
small?
I thought it was big.
Mhm.
Felt pretty good about it.
Big
Felt
or
a little
huge?
bit
Big
anxious or on the spot doing the method.
Mhm.
But yeah, it felt good to me. I don't feel defective right now.
So would you say that was a huge win then?
Yeah, that's
Oh.
huge. I guess I wasn't feeling particularly defective at the start, uh, but it felt good.
And
Cool. So that would be an example. And if you had not gotten to huge, we would have done a role reversal and demonstrated, slight different twists on the same themes and try to get it up to huge. But those two, I think we brought those two techniques to life pretty well.
Yeah.
And Matt, how did you come to huge? Like,
I think it was mostly for me, it's mostly the acceptance paradox that I'm very defective, and that's okay. That's not the problem. The problem is demanding I be perfect.
Yeah, right. Right. So you accept the fact that you're second rate, defective, and average at best in most categories.
Happily, happily. And I think that puts me in excellent company too.
Yeah. Say to me, David, I've heard that you're only average.
David, I'm a little concerned. I've heard that you're only average.
You say I'm average?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a huge step up for me.
I love that one. That's great. It's a great response.
It is so true. I'm just an elderly, half-demented fart that stumbles around. When you come on a hike, you'll see my wife ordered a new cane for me on Amazon that has a chair on it. It's real lightweight, claim, because I have to sit down to rest my back every 200 paces or something like that. So I'm just elderly, demented, but just loving life, and I love life when I can hang out with you two. So
we love you, David.
We do.
Yeah. So just call me average and boost my ego like that, and I'll pretend I'm average and feel terrific.
Nice.
That was a really sweet gift from Melanie too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we haven't gotten it yet. We're getting in the mail on Thursday, she said. So we'll see if it works.
That sounds great. I look forward to hiking with you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Did we give a plug for the intensive?
We did
Yes,
at the
we
beginning.
did. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Matt, David, it just feels
one other thing we have to give a plug for.
What would that be?
The Feeling Great app is in the app stores now.
Woohoo! Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah. See if it makes an impact. See if it changes the way people think and feel and reduces some suffering. That's what we're hoping.
I just heard from someone yesterday who used it, and they were like reduced to tears of joy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they let go of all, and it was just from the empathy component.
Oh, is that right?
They felt so deeply understood, and it created a space for them to get access some tears that had been locked away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It does fantastic stuff. Jason has programmed it so beautifully, the AI, to the empathy will blow your socks off, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, because just like in therapy, we have massively more than just empathy, but it puts human therapists to shame, present company probably excluded, but it's just beautiful.
Won't there be a group that Brandon Vance and Heather Clegg run in the fall?
Well, that's another thing. Yeah. And so how would they contact them there's going to be a Feeling Great group if you want to, it'll be a 3-month group. I think once a week, like an hour, 20 minutes with other like-minded people who are using the app, and you get to practice the techniques. And they've been running book clubs for quite a long time based on my books, but now they're going to do one based on the app. And this could be a tremendous experience for many of you. So
I mean, I don't know if we know that yet. Heather and Brandon are going to create a website and an email address, which we'll announce in the future. But since you brought that up, that the app is out, I just wanted people to know too that the group will start in the fall sometime. And as we have more information, we'll pass that along.
Oh, okay. It's just something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay, you guys.
Have a great afternoon, people, and till we meet again.
You too, David. Great spending time with you both.
Yeah, my honor.